Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Jamie Anderson, and this is all about 5 Star 5. I've got a very special guest joining me. In fact, I'm not going to keep him waiting any longer, or you. Here he is. It's Richard James.
Hello there. How are you doing?
Well, very nice to see you, as always.
Yes, nice to see you.
For anyone watching, Richard, who doesn't know who you are and
Yes.
what your relationship is to the world of Gerry Anderson,
Of course.
could you summarise that relatively rapidly?
Why should they know? Well, I'm Richard James. I'm co-host of the weekly Gerry Anderson podcast. Also, I was in Space Precinct, played Officer Orin in 1994, I think, at Pinewood Studios for a year.
Yeah.
Since then, I've been, I suppose you could say, quite intimately involved with Anderson Entertainment, providing voices for various audio productions and writing several novelizations of many of Gerry's shows and unproduced scripts.
You are a very busy boy.
Yeah, I try
Aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yeah,
it's quite amazing, and I'm always very pleased to be doing bits and pieces with you from the podcast through to other projects. Now, I told you about 5 Star 5, or we talked about it some time ago.
Yes.
And I have, as a refresher for both of us and for our lovely viewers, a couple of clips of Dad talking about 5 Star 5. Because when we talk about Gerry Anderson shows, we talk about Thunderbirds and Space 1999 and UFO and Captain Scarlet. And I can literally hear the nods of the viewers now as they go, yes, I know those. But then we say 5 Star 5 and they go,
say what now?
What? What's that? Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
So let's have a little bit of an audio clip of Dad talking about what 5 Star 5 was and how it started.
John Redway introduced me to Sydney Rose, and it seemed that Sydney was going to be able to raise the money, so we decided that we would co-produce a feature film, and the director was going to be a very famous director, and he agreed that he would do the picture.
So this mysterious picture was due in the late 1970s, a script by Dad and Tony Barwick. His answer, we sort of say his answer to Star Wars wasn't quite that, though, was it? What's your impression of what 5 Star 5 was going to be?
I think in terms of the scale, it certainly was, as we often say, Gerry's answer to Star Wars. But the basic story was really the Magnificent Seven in space. It's about a classic ragtag collection of disparate characters being drawn together to defeat a common enemy. And much of the original screenplay is actually finding these different characters in their different situations and recruiting them to the cause. So we start by meeting John Lovell, who's this wizened, grizzled freighter captain, a bit of a smuggler in his spare time, we seem to assume, and his simian sidekick. He's got a talking chimp as his co-pilot, Clarence B. Bond. Is his co-pilot, and really for the rest of the script, they sort of go on a jaunt around the universe, picking up their companions. We meet Rudy, a marauding robot, a demolition robot, who's recruited to the cause. We meet a young boy called Jai, who has a psychic link with his robot dog, which now allows him, as you did, which allows him to see whatever and hear whatever his dog sees and hears. Which is quite a useful skill, you might think. We meet Colonel Zana, of the who's a Kestran military officer, who joins John Lovell as well, and Sumara, a strange sort of a mystic monk, I think is the way I look at him, who has again supernatural and psychic powers. And there will be spoilers throughout this item, I have to say, because that was 2 books ago. We do know that Sumara died at the I know, yes, at the conclusion of the initial book. But those of you who've read The Doomsday Device, the second book, will know that, in a way, Sumara lives on. And even into the 3rd book as well. So all those characters that Gerry and Tony Barwick created survive pretty much intact throughout the following 2 sequels as well.
Ooh, okay, fine. We're going to touch on sequels and other bits and pieces, but still, those people who don't know about 5 Star 5 will be thinking, well, this all sounds great. Tell me more about the original stuff and where it comes from. So here's another quick clip of Dad talking about the development.
As far as I remember, I wrote the script with Tony Barwick. and it was a bloody good script. It was a real action piece. It was budgeted out at $11 million, which is a lot of money at that time.
It's a lot of money now as well.
It really is.
So
Yeah.
he said it's a bloody good script. Agree or disagree?
Oh, agree or disagree? It's certainly, I mean, you mentioned there it's an action piece, and it absolutely is. It's full of set pieces, space battles, ship against ship, fighter against fighter, hand to hand in some places, strange alien planets. I mean, the locations are extraordinary. In terms of the story itself, it's quite a linear narrative. It's very simple in that it's good versus evil. It's the Kestrels versus the Zargons. It's never really quite explained why the Zargons go to such lengths to build a fortress on an asteroid, form a space battle cruiser fleet, and attack the planet Kestra. We don't really learn why in that first story. We just learn that they do it, and are ultimately, for now, defeated at the end of the book. But it is certainly, I could absolutely see it's very visual, very written in a very visual style. So you could imagine sitting in a cinema and watching it on the big screen in front of you, for sure.
Yeah. Well, sadly, we are unable to do that, but thankfully we are able to read it and enjoy your novelized version, which we'll come on to in a second. But again, this great big sci-fi epic, which was supposed to go into production and went into pre-production back in the late 1970s, always looking good. People were starting to do designs and build models. There's a few photos of prototype spaceships and sidearms and various other things all around the internet. But it all went wrong. And, the next clip I'm going to play is the story of how it went wrong. And then sadly why it didn't come to be, but also then how it meant that Richard was able to novelize this and take us further into the world of Five Star Five. So here is the story of the infamous Telex.
And we went into pre-production with a signed contract, but the contract was signed by somebody who turned out not to be not a British national. So at a later date we found that the contract was invalid. But furthermore, the first tranche of money was due and it didn't turn up. And we had already started engaging people and got a telex from a bank, a foreign bank, to say the first tranche of money will be with you in 48 hours. And on that basis we made certain commitments. I thought I was being smart because I telexed the bank back and said, "Are you bank whatever it was?" And they replied, "Yes, we are." So I thought, well, we've got a telex from the bank saying $1 million is on its way, must be all right.
But of course, the money never arrived. And in fact, allegedly, what had happened was that the sorry, there's a strange sound. Allegedly, what had happened was that the man had gone into the bank while the telex operator was on their lunch break, and then said, can I send a telex? Oh, sorry, I'm on my lunch. It's okay, I know how to do it. I'll send it myself. And he sent it over to Pinewood Studios, and it was all fake. So the production collapsed. That was it. End of, all over. And then the script sat in the filing cabinet for many, many years after, until Richard James started messing around with it. So that gave us the first book.
There it is. Yeah, that's right.
John Lovell and the Zargon Threat.
Yes.
How was it bringing this to life?
It was a thrill, of course it was. Right from the very first scene, when I read the script, I knew that it would work as a book because, as we've said, it's action-packed. And I was hoping it would be just as thrilling to read as it would have been to watch. I went online and, as you say, found various images, even a design for a logo, and a few ships and sidearms, firearms, and so on. And I sort of kept them in mind as I wrote. Yeah, it was really interesting to adapt it into a novel. It really had that thing of what I try to do as a writer is to leave each chapter with a reason to read the next chapter. So it's difficult to put the book down. And thankfully, the script was very like that, in that each scene left the action in such a place that you wanted to read on. So it really kind of told itself in a way. And such glorious, well-defined characters with fantastic relationships. I mean, I love Clarence and Lovell. Their relationship is quite sparky, and Rudy's a beautiful character as well. Really, really well drawn. This big brute of a beast, of a metal beast, but with a tender heart. You know, that's quite a beguiling character, I think.
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
No, it's full of great characters, which is really lovely.
Yeah.
And part of the reason then why after you did the first book, we decided. Well, in fact, did we decide or did you decide that you were going to do 2 more?
Well, no, I remember it like this, Jamie, that I gave you the finished manuscript for the book. And at that point, up until that point, it had just been known as 5 Star 5, the novel 5 Star 5 of the script 5 Star 5. And you said, well, why don't we give it some sort of subtitle? And then that gives us the option at some point to tell other stories under the 5 Star 5 banner, which I guess, you know, probably that's how it would have happened had there been sequel films. And there's the first and there's the second, the Doomsday Device. That's right.
They did. Yeah, they gave us scope to do more.
Yeah.
It's all very well me saying let's have scope to do more, but then you actually did it.
Yes. So I think at that point I wasn't thinking of doing more until you mentioned the subtitle, and then I thought, okay, so there could be other stories in this range. It could be a range of stories. So then I started to think, okay, well, what from that first novel would I like to tie up? What issues would I like to address? Because there were some outstanding issues. In the first book, for example, John Lovell is given, it's 1 million gold bars, or it's quite vague, quite what the currency is, but he's given 1 million in gold, essentially.
Yeah.
Which he buries on an asteroid, I think, if memory serves, to collect after the adventure, which he doesn't. He never goes to get it back at the end of that first book. And I thought, well, there's the first thing he would do. He would go back and get his gold, of course.
Of course.
So that gave me an opening to the second book. Was okay, he goes back to get his gold, but it's missing. Someone's taken it. So what happened to Lovell's gold? That was the first question I was able to answer. The other one we've already addressed was, why were the Zargons trying to invade Kestra in the first place? So that led me to think about the Zargon homeworld and what that might be like. And I sort of came up with the idea that perhaps they had been such a militaristic race that they had spent all their resources and polluted their atmosphere with this great military machine, basically pouring all their resources into making battle cruisers and this kind of thing. And maybe Zargon was dying as a result. Maybe it just wasn't habitable anymore. So they were looking at Kestra with envious eyes as potentially another place to live. And as you'll know, if you've read the Doomsday Device, more spoilers coming up, viewers, the Zargons actually create a device that's able to extract the core from Kestra to use on their home planet to give them clean and abundant energy. It's a very grand sci-fi theme, isn't it?
Yeah.
That seemed to fit the epic storytelling scale of the first book.
And fits the kind of the epic Anderson feeling for all these things. I think it's
absolutely
very fitting.
That's right. And there's a fantastic representation on the cover here of the Doomsday Device in action. I mean, exactly how I imagined it and described it. So to see that represented on a book cover is amazing.
It's very cool. So best things always come in threes, don't they?
Yes.
So the next book, which is available to pre-order from the 5th of July and out later in July, is this one.
There it is. Lovely. Another brilliant cover. Beautiful.
It's a beauty, isn't it? Clever old Marcus Stamets doing these lovely covers. So this wraps up the trilogy, and makes sense now that we've decided that Kestra is so valuable.
Yes, that's right.
So what can you hint at for what we can expect in the Battle for Kestra?
Well, again, giving you hints about the third book, by necessity, I'm going to have to give some minor spoilers about the previous 2 books. I'll be very careful. But at the end of the second book, you will note, if you've read it, that it ends on a bit of a cliffhanger with the death, the assassination of someone. So the third book really opens with the 5 Star Five, and we now know why they're called that by the end of the second book, by the way. Each of them use their own special, unique skills and talents to join together to find the assassin of this particular character at the end of the second book. So they find him, they question him, and they discover that he was, of course, in the pay of the Zargons. And the Zargons are having another crack at Kestra. So they've tried invading it in the first book. They've tried destroying it in the second book. And now finally, in the third book, they're trying to infiltrate it from the inside.
Nice.
And what that means is that we get, and is alluded to on the cover there, these red flags that are seen flying over the back. That's it. Look, it's quite a militaristic sort of regime, isn't it? You know, depicted by that image there, the red flags and the military combat uniforms and that sort of thing. So what we get to do is see the planet Kestra under Zargon rule for a while, and what that is like, what it's like for the beautiful planet of Kestra and its peace-loving inhabitants to be living under this iron fist of the Zargons, and how quickly and how subtly they take over. But of course, our heroes, John Lovell and the gang, go underground and undercover to fight against the infiltration and free the planet from the Zargon rule.
Or so we hope.
Or so we hope, yes. And I have to say, you know, I knew from once I started writing the second book, I knew it was going to be a trilogy, and I knew there would be a third book. And I actually had the very last chapter of the third book in my head as I started writing the second book. I knew where I wanted the characters to end up.
Nice. And so they did.
So they did, yes, exactly. That's right.
Amazing. Okay. Well, I'm sure lots of people are looking forward to reading that, particularly if they've had the previous 2 books. I mean, look at the 3 of them all together there. Oh,
wonderful. Yeah, that's right.
So lovely.
Yeah.
But if you do want the Battle for Kestra, the hardback collector's edition, it is super limited in terms of its print availability. So if you're collecting, then make sure you get your pre-order in on Wednesday.
Yes.
Once that sells out, we will switch over to a standard paperback edition, and ebook. But if you want to read it first, and you want to read it in the lovely hardback version, and they are lovely things. They do look.
Oh, absolutely, they're beautiful. Absolutely right. Yeah.
Then grab them while you can. Well, if 5 Star 5 is over, Richard.
Yes.
I mean, could it come back, or are you onto other Anderson things? Or?
Well, I mean, never say never, I suppose. There's always room for more stories. I mean, we leave John Lovell in a nice place, in a happy place. But you know, he's kind of been there and done that by the end of the third book. But there's no reason why he wouldn't be tempted back if, well, probably if the price was right. Other books, well, yes, of course, there are other things in the pipeline. Let's say the latest thing I'm writing is an adaptation. I'm going to say the word, it's a prequel to a more recent Anderson project. Yeah, I'll leave that with you.
You're a terrible tease. Okay, well, Richard, thank you so much for bringing 5 Star 5 to life and for making it a trilogy. I know lots of people have enjoyed the previous 2, and they're bound to enjoy the Battle of Kestra as well. And well, I know what your next project is, of course.
You do.
But I think others will be very pleased to hear about it in due course. But until then, I guess we should say goodbye.
Yeah, we ought to wrap up, really.
Okay. Well, bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.